He whispered in my ear as we wandered hand in hand through a quaint little lakeside village on our anniversary getaway weekend. I don't know what other husbands whisper in the ears of their lives on such a romantic event. I've never loved you more than I do right now. You're as pretty as the day we met. Let's get out of here and do something crazy. I honestly don't know what other husbands whisper in their wives' ears. My experience of spousal ear whispering is limited by having only 2 ears and 1 husband. So what did my husband whisper in my ear on that lovely, private fall afternoon? Imperatives, nothing but imperatives. I squeezed his hand to let him know I felt the same way. This is what happens when nerds marry. We share a passion for good. I'm serious, Misha. Welcome to my life. We share a passion for good grammar and sound, I know, and sound sentence structure and voluminous vocabulary cemented by a common syntax. Imperatives. You know what that word means. An imperative is an urgent command, a directive. And what led my dear husband to whisper that romantic word in my ear on our 35th wedding anniversary? Every shop in town was selling worn barnwood signs ordering us to do something. Never give up, it said in one shop. Eat dessert first, it said in another. Make every day a lake day. Dream big. I'm sure the artist's intention was to inspire, but I ended up feeling like a bad dog. Sit, stay, roll over, play dead. Because imperatives are what we offer when the people around us aren't acting the way we think they should. Though couched in clever whimsy, such commands in fact say, I'm unhappy with you and want you to do it my way. That's a sign we'll be hanging on our kitchen wall very soon. So when Jesus' disciples ran up behind him and tugged on his sleeve, their flushed faces could not hide their disappointment with him. Imperative, 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 we want you to do for us whatever we ask. The clear implication was that Jesus was not performing to expectation. Amused, Jesus played along, and what is it that you would ask me to do for you? Imperative, 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 give us to sit at your right and your left hands in paradise. I doubt that it was affection for Jesus, that they wanted to hold his hand in eternity, that drove them. Instead, they were afraid. They were afraid someone else might be crowned king and queen of the heavenly prom, afraid Jesus might love someone more than he loved them, afraid that all their faithful following would come to nothing. When the other disciples learned of James and John's private plea, they were enraged. Imperative, 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 they shouted at the brash brothers, jump in a lake, go chase yourself, or other suggestions I cannot suggest in church. They were all unhappy, all 12 of them, and they were all afraid. They did not understand who Jesus was or where he was leading them or what would become of them or what was expected of them. So in their fear, they beat each other over the head with demands and expectations and commands and imperatives. Jesus broke up the fight and gathered the disciples around him as though they were tired toddlers at story time. And he told them a story. The story he told had not a single imperative in it. He played no grammar games. He told them who they were. In just a few days, we'll be marking the first anniversary of my father's death, and it's been surprising to me how often he comes to mind. But more than thinking about him, I've been thinking about my mom. 88 years old, prays every night that she won't wake up the next morning. She lives in a modest but comfortable retirement center in our modest but comfortable little town. And she misses my dad tremendously. She is always sad. So what do we do about that? We children who love her more than our own lives? How do we comfort this gentle woman who raised us with kindness and calm and patience? We should all over her. You should eat something. You should take a nap. Oh, Mom, you shouldn't cry. Mom, you should go for a walk. We don't mean to be hurtful. We don't mean to be short. But we are afraid. We miss our dad, and we know that one day we will be missing our mom in the same way. But you can imagine how helpful our imperatives are. Most of the people my mother lives with are people she's known all her life. Nobody ever leaves well, they leave, they don't come back. The people who stay forever. Neighbors from the farm. She has high school classmates down the hall. At one time, all of her siblings lived in that same care center. And only recently did I realize that when the people who live and work there talk to her, there are no imperatives, no demands, no thinly veiled criticism. They describe things. They tell her stories. They snuggle their walkers close to my mother's wheelchair and remind her who she is. Her roommate, Arlene, is a childhood friend who actually lived the next farm over on a gravel road. And she can't hear worth a ding, but she sure can talk. And she tells stories to my mother that they would remember together about summer picnics that the girls would have together, draft horses with funny names, the dog with the crooked ear, and snowstorms that lasted for days. One of the aides, who is my high school classmate, encourages my mother to eat by telling her stories about food. She reminds my mom about sweet corn, fresh from the field, about chickens that we butchered by hand. She reminds my mother of cookies dripping with molasses and milk thick with cream from our own cows. And my aunt, for whom 1948 is far more vivid than 2018, tells stories about when we kids were small and always into something. Our imperative pleading does nothing but remind my mom that she is old, that she is sad, that dad is dead, and none of us is happy about the way she's living right now. But when her friends tell her stories, she is a young farmer's wife. She is the mother of 8 busy children. She is a busy neighbor, a faithful friend, and a favorite sister. Imperatives serve only to tell us who we are not. And love tells us who we are. Jesus loves his disciples, and he wants them to follow, not out of fear, but out of faith. So Jesus' grammatical choices are not accidental. Rather than chastising the disciples for being complete idiots, imperative, he told them who they were, who we are. Jesus said, "You are servants, not masters. You are last, not first. You are grateful, not great. You will suffer, but you will not be insufferable. Not a should anywhere, just the story, just the description of who they are." So without a single imperative, I will tell you who we are. We are willing servants. We are faithful followers. We are joyfully obedient. Because though the world whispers in our ears that we are not enough, that we should be more, that we should be something other than we are, Jesus reminds us of who we are already. Some relationships are necessarily built on rules, duty-bound, and demand-heavy. If you were a Marine, you know what I mean. If you've ever taken your dog to OB in school, you know what I mean. If you belong to a fitness club, you know what I mean. Harder, harder, sweat, sweat. But it is not so among us. Here we belong to Jesus and to each other, joyfully serving the world. No if, no but, no should.